Oh wait, no longer greatness has arrived. Welcome to episode 296 of The Trophy Room, a PlayStation podcast made by the players for the players. I'm your host, Joseph, aka Mr. Badbit, and it is here where me and my best friend Kyle talk about the latest, the greatest in all things PlayStation. Of course, this week we are chatting about finally, the PlayStation VR2's pricing, release date, launch games, all that fun stuff. And we're going to be talking about where Square Enix goes next. And of course, last but not leastly, our God of War Ragnarok review discussion. So with all that said, and with all that out of the way, not the greatest co-host who ever is, who ever will be, Mr. Luke Lore. How are you, sir?
Well, Joe, I tell you.
Oh, God.
It's been a long time coming. You had me back on this here show.
I
gotta tell you.
I now understand the voices.
Here to put you in your place. That's right. That's right. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on for such short notice, because I do want to address the elephant in the room that is Kyle's absence, because he had a lot to say about PlayStation VR2's pricing. And, well, let's be honest, the way it's been revealed to us so far, but he can't make it here today. He has some family stuff going on. If you want to learn all about it, please check out his Twitter, at Mr. K-Step. To make a long story short, his 1-year-old nephew is in the hospital. So please, our best wishes, thoughts, prayers, all that good stuff to Kyle and his family in this trying time. And I'll be real, as we're going through this episode, it's going to be tough not having Kyle here and knowing how much or what he's going through right now. So please, everybody, send your well wishes to Kyle. And at the same exact time, send your worst wishes over to Mr. Luke Lore, a.k.a. the Insipid Ghost, over at XEP. And in all seriousness, Luke, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, man, happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Thank you.
No stranger to when the schedule falls apart last minute at all. And I'm happy I was able to join you because my schedule is starting to free up just a smidgen.
That's right.
And I'm starting to get my feet under me again because I had a window of time where I was just booked. So I'm excited to be here, man. Lots of stuff to talk about.
And real talk,
news.
We have news, stuff that's worth talking about. And right. I kind of feel the same. Finally, time is opening up where I'm not devastatingly tired to record a podcast. Yeah. The last 2 months have been insane. But I want to tell you a story before we talk about all this PlayStation stuff. You want to hear this? I like
stories.
Okay.
Ready? You heard about this?
Have you heard about this? I got a call today. It was like a phone call interview. Mm-hmm. And when I mentioned my resume, I talked about the trophy room. Mm-hmm. And he goes, "Oh, and how's your co-host Kyle?" And that took me back.
Oh.
And I go, "Whoa, you did your homework." He's like, "Yeah, I've listened to a few episodes." And my initial thoughts, Luke, no lie.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Uh-oh, indeed.
I'm like, did I ruin this interview? He's like, no, you're good. I wouldn't be calling you otherwise.
Well, I got news for you. This guy called me as a reference, and I told him about the things you did.
That's
all
fine.
Right?
Yeah, especially to your mother. But here's the thing.
No.
No. You deal with that, too, because you're a teacher. You got these kids bothering you. How many times did that happen to you, in a month?
It happens every school year.
Yeah.
Every school year it happens.
Do they just find out, or do you tell them to try to boost your numbers?
No, never. They're not the audience that you want, right? You're in all joking aside, when you want an audience that's engaged, not a number. That's not a one-time click, right? Yeah. Which I actually compete against that because I do interviews. Sometimes those are one-time clicks.
Yeah.
I tell them to get ahead of it. Because in truth, no kid's gonna enjoy my show. It's not designed for them. It's not like
I don't know anybody that would.
Hateful, rude. Nonetheless, sir, I tell them, but then they every 2 weeks or so, some new kid's like, "Oh, I found you on YouTube," and I'm like, "Well, that's a shame." Don't know why you're looking for more of me.
I don't know.
Here's a paper.
What's causing you to type in Luke Lore on YouTube?
Morbid curiosity. Usually they want to find dirt on you of some kind.
That's fair.
Most of the time it's not malicious. It's more like they think it's fun.
Yeah.
Most of the time. But I will say more than once over the last probably 3 months, I've had somebody say, "Oh, XEP, yeah, I know what you're talking about."
No
Very
way.
cool. Yeah, you and I, we've battered that idea back and forth. Like we've just had like little moments where someone's like, "Yeah, I know your work," and it's like, "Cool, didn't
Okay.
know." You know, when
That's
somebody catches you off guard, and it's like, "That's cool."
yeah.
So that's a feel good for you that they listen to your episodes.
It was, and I'm just like, oh god, which one was it?
Well, probably the one where you expressed unyielding support for Kanye.
Yeah,
I think.
gotta support Ye in
Yeah.
these trying times.
Yeah, he's having a tough time. And
Yeah.
how dare Adidas, I think is what you said.
Yeah.
And
I said, how dare Skechers not
yeah,
make
out of line.
room for a appointment, you know, last minute, you know.
Right.
Oh wait, listen. All joking aside, before we get into it, Luke Lore, for everybody who's new to you, who's just listening, who are you? What do you do? Take it away.
Well, my name is Luke Lore. I host the Xbox Expansion Pass, which is an interview-based show. 150 episodes, 85 plus industry guests, from the creator of the original Xbox, Seamus Blackley, to pretty recently, I had the creative director of Sea of Thieves on. I often feature developers from indie to AAA titles to just talk about their craft and discuss what's going on. I talk about the goings-on of the gaming news and how it interacts with the Xbox community and how it impacts Xbox overall. And in short, it's a show in which I discuss the world of gaming as it pertains to Xbox. So if there's relevant PlayStation 5 news or PlayStation news and it's going to in some way affect what's going on in the Xbox world, we'll discuss that. Absolutely. It's a solo show, so it's just me and I answer questions and whatnot. It's a blast. And I've been off for a week and a half from podcasting. So this is nice to be back and ease back in.
Nice,
on this
nice.
amateur hour here.
Whoa.
What?
Go yourself. I got a bleep machine. All right. This is professional as right now. Get out of here. Thank you. No, seriously, you have some of the best interviews just in the industry alone. So everybody, please check out XEP because Luke does legitimately. I feel like it's like once a quarter we're talking about an interview of his on this show because it's industry breaking. So please check out XEP because unironically he's a really good podcaster and a really good friend. That took a lot. I was doing the finger crosses while I was doing it, so I didn't mean it. And also, just before we get into the rigmarole, just a few pieces of housekeeping. Of course, this is your last chance, your last announcement to get ahead of the Carpool Gaming / the Trophy Room / Save the Game Media Extra Life stream that is happening this Saturday. As of recording, we are raising money for the Strolleys Children's Hospital in Edmonton, Alberta, the hospital that helps the friend of the show, Marcus O'Neill's son, Miles. And we are donating the God of War Collector's Edition, the $200 limited edition, for anybody who chips in more than $10 to our Extra Life stream. Of course, winners, I believe, get read on Sunday, the day after. So please make sure you're throwing out a good $10, $20. It really does help. And it helps kids like Miles who need special surgeries that couldn't afford it otherwise. And if you want a bonus, just a little hey, double my chances of winning something God of War related, you can rate the show 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and you get a chance to win the digital deluxe edition of God of War Ragnarok. Now, with that said, I want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/PS Trophy Room. Like I say each and every week, the reason why we look so good, sound so great, and get to do so many cool things is because of your support over at patreon.com/PS Trophy Room. I want to thank our newest members, Mateo 1606 and Maximum Carnage. I want to thank our platinum members, Todd Burowitz and Toxic. I want to thank our gold members, Too Soon, Gavin Gottfried, Jose Jimenez, Jedi Master N, Metal Kirby, Stephen Flesh, Doth Simon the Pie Man, Chaotic Monkey, Enigma, Millennial Falcon Gaming, Sith Lord 92, and Strubles and Bits. I want to thank our Silver Plus members, Awesome Dave, Hide Indoors, Naka Marcus O'Neill, JB the Purple Monkey, Jadus Vaughn Metal, Tim Ulf, Justin Rodriguez, Cypher Prima, Captain Logan, Brenton Zachary, K Grimm, Rick Arrington, Dewane Raksha, The Good Sir, Drellish, Foolish Fuji, Kevin Mitchell, Kevin Diaz, Elo 2032, Bubble Boy N7, Jesse Garcia, Hambone, the Aztec King, Stone Cold, E.T., Astronaut Jr., not to be mistaken with Astronaut Senior, Green Gorilla Gamer, Katie Stubbs, M9 Prime, Sean McKenzie, N. Johnson, Final Fans, Indrozo, Vantante Tatted, Lamb Chop 93, and Justin Rodriguez. Thank you all so much for your support. It really does help us out. Now, that said, Luke, usually each and every week we square up the news and Kyle reads out the news. And he does a bang up job of it because I have
very good.
crippling dyslexia. You're the guest, and I don't want you to read. That would be very rude. Okay. But I want to preface this to the audience. I normally don't do this, and I have dyslexia. So please don't make fun of me.
He's also real dumb, not related to dyslexia.
Honestly, I'll give you that. I'm a big dumb idiot, folks. But it is time to square up the news. Let's take it away for the first one from Vicky Blake over at Eurogamer, titled Square Enix wants to make global hits and believes blockchain will play a key part of future growth. Ooh, titles that aren't going to age well. All right, in a financial report that confirmed Square Enix has set new records for full year net sales, the Japanese company says it wants to, quote, enhance its presence in the global market. Unquote. Given the graying demographics of developing games primarily in the Japanese market. In a statement, Square Enix said that it's, quote, critical for its businesses that it produce hits that speak to a global market. They continue, we need to enhance our presence in the global market by quickly establishing organizational structure that enables us to constantly roll out high-quality content produced through selective and focused resource allocation. This requires the revamping of our title and studio portfolio. Achieving major growth in the gaming industry is difficult now that companies that compete primarily in the Japanese market, given its graying demographics. They mean aging, but that's weird how they say graying. Nonetheless, it's critical for our business that we produce hits that speak to the global market, which offers greater scales in terms of both consumers and sales volumes. Square Enix added, in other words, the Japanese market is no longer sufficient for achieving the level of earnings that enable us to recoup our development, investment, and generate a profit, and therefore, we need to approach our development efforts based on the assumption that we have to succeed in the global market. Just weeks after confirming that it was selling off Western studios and IP to Embracer Group for $300 million, Square Enix revealed plans to establish new studios and acquire others. The news came as part of the company's recent financial presentation, which revealed one of Square Enix's, quote, medium-term business strategy initiatives is to, quote, boost development capabilities by establishing new studios, mergers, and acquisitions. Oh boy. I read this and it felt like they want to say they're going into mergers and acquisitions, but this document read like they truly don't know what they really want from their portfolio. You know, for me, I see them going, we need to generate global hits, but then just months ago they go, we don't know how to make Western games, so we're going to sell off these studios. Crystal D and Eidos being incredible studios that make incredible games. So, Luke, I know you're not a big JRPG just like myself, but sure. I want to know what your takeaway on what's going on at Square Enix currently.
Well, it's weird listening to that and then reading the various articles I have in the last week or so. My eyes glaze over because it's such techno babble that it sounds just like pure jargon. Like they're not saying anything because I don't think they truly have a direction. It is not surprising that a company with a major presence in Japan and roots in Japan is realizing that the Japanese market is no longer sustainable to make AAA games. AAA games are going up in price. Games in general are going up in price to develop. And the market is now a worldwide market. It's no longer a North American market, a European market, an Asian market. It can't be centered into one locale and justify some of the exorbitant costs that are going into game development. So it's not surprising to me that a Japanese-based company is saying, all right, we can't be the king of Japan, and that gets us through.
Yeah.
They've certainly shown an inability to read the trend, given their lending themselves towards an NFT conversation when, Troy Baker taught us one thing. It's that you don't need to mention it.
That's right.
Why hate when you create, when you can create or whatever. Like you had that element of their jargon a few months ago, and now we have this, and we find out that they're peeling off studios. Certain elements are being let go, sold to others, working with other major studios. And publishers. It sounds like they don't have a collective vision, and they were expecting portions of their company to be split off in some ways. And it really is. It's interesting to watch because you look at what Xbox is doing as far as acquisitions, and you see the partnerships that are going on between Eidos and the Fable developments, which I'm sure is a news item at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is frustrating to hear this juggernaut of a company lose their way and really not be sure what to do as they're really trying to figure out what to do to stay alive.
And that's the thing, because I remember in like 2010, a lot of these Japanese publishers and just some publishers in general were thinking, oh, this is when phones are going to just take over. And they made the unwise decision of just pushing everything to develop for mobile. And when that didn't happen, the Japanese market had to kind of scramble to what to do and try to rebound. And we've seen companies rebound spectacularly. Like Capcom, this generation or last generation coming into this gen, has just been smashing it. Every single game that's come out has just resonated not just with the Japanese market, but somehow also with the Western side as well. Like you take a look at Monster Hunter, and like theoretically you don't think just by looking at it that would resonate with people, but it is. Resident Evil is bigger now than ever. Its revival is massive. And then you take a look at Square, and I feel so bad because again, I'm not like a JRPG guy, but that name I know used to mean something in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and even 4th generation. That name carried so much weight. And for me, I hurt for the fans that are kind of feeling like they're sitting in the passenger seat while the driver makes literally every wrong turn, and you literally have Waze in front of you. And you're like, just make a Chrono Cross. Parasite Eve is right here. Like you have all these IP that are beloved, that are cult hits, use them. And that's why I feel like there's so much frustration when it comes to Square Enix, is that you have this IP, why don't you use it? And
they have
it's
IP that they're. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, go for it.
But yeah, they have IP that they're not using. They underutilize some of their IP, and they over rely on certain trends at various times. And it's really, really, I think, frustrating to watch because some of what they make has just been absolute elite stuff. You know what I mean? And some of the stuff
like Final Fantasy VII remakes, phenomenal.
Absolutely. And I think PlayStation gamers are just loving the idea that more Final Fantasy content is coming to their platform.
Yeah.
Equally baffling is the silence about what's going on to other platforms. Their presence on PC, their presence on Xbox. It's so inconsistent. It's hard to catch their vision, right? Like there are some games that come to Xbox, some games that go to PC, other stuff is PlayStation exclusive. That's difficult for investors to predict what's going to be valuable as far as the IP is concerned. They're sitting on other IP, to your point, and they don't access it when they need to. And I'm wondering if this is a sign that maybe somebody there is figuring out, okay, we've got to fix what we're doing because their current method is not effective.
Yeah. And right now, when they talk about acquisitions of being acquired, they're like, let's get away from one person being the umbrella here, and let's talk about working with partners and having them invest in our studios, because these games take a whole lot of money to create. So like if you're PlayStation, You're right, Luke. You just pour a whole lot of money into the creative business units over in Square Enix, and you solidify at least the Final Fantasy franchise to kind of be your, if not exclusive, practically exclusive JRPG franchise. Maybe you go over and knock on, the Kingdom Hearts store and see what happens there, but you're right. When it comes to the lack of consistency on platforms, Square Enix is king because it's so confusing. Like, take a look at Octopath Traveler. Octopath Traveler 2 is coming to PlayStation. 1 was exclusive to Xbox and Switch. And Octopath Traveler 2 is coming to PlayStation, but the sequel will not be coming to Xbox. It's like, what weird. Was the decision here? It's very weird. And so, for me, if you're PlayStation, you're eating right now because you have an opportunity to kind of use part of the cow and not have to buy the whole thing. So you're in luck right now. There's an opportunity here for you. And that leads to the first question of the night by Clearwings. And of course, you can add your questions over to the Trophy Room Discord server, link down below in the description, or you can tweet at us at PS Trophy Room. And Clearwings writes, my question for the show is, hi guys, I hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right. With Sony trying to strengthen their position in the argument against Microsoft, do you think that a big developer purchase such as Square or Team Ninja has already happened and that they are just sitting on it? Or do you think they're done making purchases? Thank you both for all you do. He meant Kyle, not you. So do you think that Sony's sitting on gold here in terms of like, yeah, they've already wheeled and dealed, and now they're just waiting. Do you think that for sure?
I don't know that it's an acquisition element, but Sony has shown no shyness in spending money to keep IP, to keep marketing, and to keep certain games synonymous with their platform. Yeah. And PlayStation gamers are rewarded for that time and time again. And it's a fundamentally different strategy than Nintendo and Xbox are showing next to it. As far as sitting on an IP purchase or a studio purchase, I don't know that you could keep that wholly secretive. Yeah. I doubt it's that elementary in some ways, but certainly there's probably been a disinclination to share certain things on their socials, share certain things in what would have been showcases of some kind. I mean, if I don't know whether or not the Silent Hill stuff being exclusive was meant to be in a showcase of some kind for PlayStation side, but it certainly doesn't help PlayStation in their argument about, hurting gamers if things go exclusive, big franchises and such. Yeah. I don't know on that front at all, but it's not likely that something that as major as a publisher purchase or a studio purchase can stay quiet.
Yeah. Unless I would believe that like that company is private, then I think you can get away with holding it close to the chest. But I think you also want to celebrate those things as well. I would say that it's definitely happening. They're definitely going over and talking to folks. Who they're talking to, God only knows. And we'll find out in a few months after this whole thing with Activision Blizzard kind of blows over. But I think in terms of like the smaller studios, I think first and foremost, when we say all roads lead to Square Enix, there are multiple roads going to Square Enix. Like I can definitely see PlayStation, again, throwing investment into studios in Square to retain, Final Fantasy. I could see Tencent going into studios to get something out of it, and Nintendo as well, because they have a close relationship with Square to solidify that partnership so that they don't, go away from each other. So in that regard, I do think that they're doing things, but it's not. You're not going to see guys, PlayStation. I mean, I'd love to be like, you're not going to see this in like a day later. You're not going to see, PlayStation acquire EA or like 2K or any of these big publishers. And I think they are truly going the route that we would like them to do, which is like acquired special development teams. Look at XDev, use XDev efficiently. And you're seeing that in some stories that we're going to be talking about, like the Sumo Group and the Dark Pictures crew. Those are teams that are acquired from other or acquired by other publishers, but PlayStation is still working with them via XDev. So I'm going to say that, yes, they're working on something, but it's not Team Ninja. It's probably a little bit of Square, but it's probably somewhere European. And that's probably where they're going to be going. Because I feel like that's where most of the movement that we've seen as of late be. So I would expect more stuff there. Like, for example, like I would love someone to go over and knock on IOI's door. You know, Microsoft's working with them pretty closely on a few projects.
Yep.
Acquire that team. They're really, really goddamn fantastic. So I would say something like that.
I think what's likely to happen, and for context, I don't know if we've actually mentioned it, but do you have in the news segments the Fable news for Xbox and iOS and Square?
Boo.
Well,
Fable
the reason I bring
sucks.
that up is it's been shown on multiple times that Microsoft is basically hiring out for some of their major IP.
Yes.
You got Perfect Dark working with Crystal Dynamics. You have Eidos working on Fable based on Jason Schreier's reporting, which is all the more complex given Embracer Group doing what they're doing. And I think what's likely to happen is you're going to see studios like that be hired out by the big boys until they're able to be acquired. Because right now with the recent acquisitions of Bungie and Activision kind of going in the loop, Bethesda, a lot of eyes are on Sony and Microsoft, Tencent, Amazon, and who are you acquiring?
Yeah.
And so perhaps it's a matter of building relationships with some of these studios to pool in their talent a bit. And to your point, all roads for Sony do seem to lead towards Square Enix. And honestly, it's a good fit.
Yeah.
It's a good fit. They seem to want to peel off some of their Western elements. And Sony would be a good fit for a lot of these games, these IP, and some of these developers. At least in my mind, it seems like that.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about some, I would say bad news, but I think it's kind of expected at this point. Okay. Sony loses nearly 2 million PlayStation Plus subscribers since the service revamp. This comes from Anthony Wood over at IGN. The number of PlayStation Plus subscribers has fallen almost by 2 million since Sony launched its revamped subscription service in June. According to the company's latest financial report, Sony's multi-tiered PlayStation Plus subscription has dropped from 47 million users to 45.4 million users in the 3 months leading up to September 30th, a decrease of 4%. Sony highlighted that the ratio of gamers subscribed to the service is significantly higher on PlayStation 5. Let's highlight that. Than its previous generation on the PlayStation 4 console. In response, Sony's leadership plans to accelerate the adoption of PlayStation 5 hardware to, quote, recover this user engagement going forward. The number of active users on PlayStation Network also dropped by 1 million to the latest quarter of 102 million players. Though its numbers dropped on the digital side, Sony has still had a strong showing when it comes to the PlayStation 5 hardware. The company announced that it sold now more than 25 million units and was able to produce roughly 6.5 million new PlayStation 5s in 3 months leading up to September 30th. And just a quick note from Benji Sales, he tweets, 3.3 million PlayStation 5 units shipped, now lifetime of 65 million, 62.5 million software sold, including 6.7 million first-party games. Digital software sales up 1% to 63%, 45.5 million PlayStation Plus subscribers, so on and so on. He notes this, similar from what we saw from Xbox, not the strongest results. Software sales, monthly active users, and PlayStation Plus subscribers all down year over year. Also, unfortunately, hardware had no growth. Shipped the same amount of units this quarter last year. All right, so none of the quarterly stuff, the earnings reports, really surprised me. Let's be honest with each other, y'all. It's been a slow year for AAA video games, so I expect all these numbers to kind of be pointing downward. But I do think it's funny to note that
had Gran Turismo, Horizon, Last of Us Remake.
Yeah.
You guys have had a good year, first party wise.
Well, think about it like this, the way that I'm seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about this quarter right here, right now. So I know when we're talking about the Horizon quarter, things were looking good. And then I think after quarter one, things started to...
I see. Okay, I got you.
The April, May, June. months started
Thanks,
to go
buddy.
downward. So that being said, the thing that surprises me was when they said our numbers are down for subscribers because people are going outside now. Less people are stuck indoors. I think, honest to God, there's some truth in that. But Luke, I think there's also some bigger truth, much bigger truth, in the subscription service is not to say it's not great, because there are a lot of good games in there. Mm-hmm. But what do you think has been their sticking point here? Like, what's, as an Xbox guy, what do you see as their problem with this service?
Well, as good as Sony is at getting out top tier first party content, and in my opinion, they're the best by a country mile right now. They are as bad at messaging that stuff, and they really have struggled with what the direction of their subscriber base needs to or wants to be. Like, how do we want to market this? Game Pass has a very clear messaging. All first party content, day and date. We're going to do our best to get you AAA stuff. You're going to get some indies in there. You got Game Pass. You've got this. You got access to it in multiple places. You want the ultimate version. You got it in PC. You want the regular version. You got it cloud. You got Xbox. Smart delivery. Messaging and delivery of content has not been Xbox's problem in terms of like getting the game to you, right?
Yeah.
Making the game. Selling the game to you, maybe, I hope my wording makes sense on that one. But what I mean is they have a lot of avenues for you to play, and PlayStation's version of this is not meant to be comparable, but in the eyes of a consumer, it's always going to be comparable.
Sure.
It's just how it is. And you've got a tiered system that is a bit confusing. And my theory on a bit of this is that if you're a PlayStation 4 user, mm-hmm. and then suddenly you're presented with, all right, convert PlayStation Plus to this, convert this to that. Suddenly you're being presented with a change that you may not have been ready for, wanted. Maybe you were happy with, the status quo, and that's what you wanted it to be. Whereas if you're an upgrading PlayStation 5 user, you're consciously making the decision, I'm going to upgrade, make an investment. I'm willing to spend X dollars. And that's the difference maker is, the customers that weren't ready to change stuff are being moved into a change. Whereas those that were willing to upgrade, they were saying, I'm ready to fundamentally shift what I'm doing. And then there's the element too, Joe, and I'm sorry, last point on this is if they're transitioning to a subscription-based model and they're doing it in a more staggered effect than their competitors, their games aren't designed for that right now. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, I prefer them not designed for that. Just for the record, single player narrative, my jam. Big fan of that. But what you're doing is you're sending mixed messaging to your consumers, to your customers, mm-hmm. and on a meta level, that can be a little tough, I think. So.
I think one of the biggest problems is the tier system isn't coherent enough. Like it's, mm-hmm. How many times has already have we gone, well, the premium tier is not worth it this year mm-hmm. or this month.
You say it a lot on this show. You do say
a lot. It's not. It really isn't. The grand scheme of things, you really don't need premium at this point in time. I feel like they are still experimenting with PlayStation Plus or new PlayStation Plus. And what I would rather see them do is to get rid of premium and just throw it into extra. Just merge it, call it premium, and it be, $15-$16 and say, hey, listen, all the benefits of premium or all the benefits from extra in premium at the same price of extra. Like just erase it in general. Just go, this is what premium is. You have your base tier and you have the extravagant tier. And I think that would be much easier for people to break out the spreadsheet, as it were.
Well, and even the naming is confusing.
Oh, I know. Like, you have the trophy system right there and you're not using
Gold,
it.
silver, platinum.
I know.
Xbox Ultimate or not. Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate. What do you want? Two,
And I feel like with Xbox, like Xbox's biggest problem when it comes to their subscription service is the parity between PC and console isn't there. Mm-hmm. And I hear that frustration from Xbox fans as well. But like here, it's just like, I don't know what you're offering yet. I feel like you're practicing, and this isn't. You're still toying around with what you want this service to really be, and it's not solidified yet. And listen, they have so much time to turn this boat around. This is not awful news by any stretch of the imagination. I do want to also say that the service being significantly higher on PS5 than previous generation on PS4, that's actually something that I found really interesting, that there are more PlayStation 5 users with PlayStation Plus than there are PlayStation 4 players with PlayStation Plus. It shows that the transition between this generation, it seems like they've kind of solved the problem. Usually in the start of every generation, it's like a cold restart and you have to kind of start back at zero. And it feels like PlayStation and maybe even Xbox too have kind of solved that problem, going, no. This is going to be a smoother transition where we're still making crazy boatloads of money with these subscription services. So I really like what I saw there, because while it's down 4%, and that's not a great look, fiscally, it still made more money than it had previous quarter. So the tiers do help in that regard. I just wish it was a bit more streamlined, and that they knew where they wanted to take it at day one. But that's how these services often are as well. They evolve.
Yeah, and there's an element of truth in it. If you believe in generations, that means hard stop, or hard finish, hard stop. Hard stop, hard start.
Whoa.
Yeah, oh boy. Hard stop, hard start is what I meant to say. And so you're going to have that bump in the road if that's what you're doing. Whereas if you're taking Xbox route, smart delivery, games as service, subscribing, you're just rolling into the next one. But then you run into a different set of problems. And that's how the industry is, give and take, give and take.
Yeah.
Is the Xbox Series S holding things back? It's the worst thing ever. Next week sells better than everybody. It's like, all right, whatever. I don't care. I just want to play. Be quiet.
Absolutely. So I feel like once they figure out what they want this thing to be, it's going to be gravy. And it's just going to take time. These headlines, they're very catchy, but honestly, they're way less sexy when we actually get into the meat of this thing. It kind of just is what it is. Yep. And we always kind of try to do the like doom and gloom, because if it bleeds, it leads. But honestly, the blood trail stops here. There's nothing much. In
short, and I mean, you tell me, Joe. You speak Spanish. You know the numbers. This is your jam. PlayStation not dead?
Give it a week.
Give it a week.
Give it a week. Enough. When the God of War Ragnarok scores 88 and everybody loses their mind.
Oh my gosh. If it's, dude, when that thing comes in, if it is 1 meta point lower, someone somewhere is going to create a thread, and I'm just going to be like, I don't care.
A Twitter space, a YouTube thumbnail, shock emoji.
Oh, is Twitter Spaces still a thing?
God, I hope not.
Yeah, me too.
If Elon could turn one positive into owning this goddamn forsaken platform, just get rid of Spaces,
I know we have the PSVR conversation coming up, but I will tell you real quick. 2 things. 1, I'm so stoked for Ragnarok. I can't wait till my Thor's hammer arrives. 2, these dumb idiots that are out there going to buy their blue checks, and these console wars that are out there like, well, if you really want a VR experience, just get a PC. It's the same price. Shut up. There's this. It just drives me nuts. These little console warriors that are out there like, Xbox is better because of it. Shut up. You don't have VR. Be quiet. You don't want it to? Don't buy it.
You got a wire? Get over yourself. How about that?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Let's get right into it. Let's get a little messy right now, okay? PSVR2 price costs more than a PlayStation 5 release date in February 2023. This comes from Rebecca Smith over at PS Lifestyle. Sony has finally announced the date and price of PlayStation VR2. The headset will come in as a bundle with the Sense controllers and stereo headphones, but the catch is the price for the bundle costs more than the PlayStation 5 itself. Same did with the PSVR 1, but we're not going to talk about that because we're angry at this. Anyway, we continue. Additionally, there's the option of purchasing the headset with Horizon Call of the Mountain, while the Sense controller charging station will also be released on the same day. When will the PlayStation VR2 be released? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I got the answer right here, BB. The release date is February 22nd, 2023. The Horizon Call of the Mountain PSVR2 bundle and Sense controller's charging station will also release on the same day. Pre-orders will begin on November 15th, although players can begin registering registering for pre-orders starting today, November 2nd. Sony is also promising there will be more than 20 launch games for the headset, including Horizon Call of the Mountain. Now, you only can pre-order it as of right now if you want it first on the PlayStation Direct, which means because ours is glitched, Luke, I'm going to probably have to rely on you again. Now, that said, the price, well, with the bundle, it's $550. For the PlayStation VR Horizon bundle, it's $600, and the charging station is $49.99. The PlayStation VR game shown today, Tentacular, think about like Donut County, but with an octopus. Crossfire, Sierra Squad.
That clears it up for anyone that doesn't know. Oh, it's like Donut County, but with tentacles.
Yeah, but then it's like Crossfire. We're just thinking Crossfire X, and I just think that's hilarious. After the fall,
that was exclusive.
Cities VR, Cosmononymous. I can't pronounce that word. I'm not even going to pretend. Pistol Whip VR Enhance. Spoiler alert. Looks stellar. I'm in. Dark Pictures Switchback. It's Rush of Blood, the Ride game 2. It's going to be great. And Zenith MMO, which of course I hear great things. Mm-hmm. Oh boy. Hobo Goblin writes in. So this week, finally, we've seen Sony release details surrounding PlayStation VR2 for the price. And as expected, I've already seen people balking at the price with their expectations being somewhere between 350, I'm going to guess that's pounds, between 350 pounds and 400 pounds. Get real currency. What are your thoughts on the price? Also, thanks for writing in. What are your thoughts on the price? I.e., is it what you were expecting given the specs? And has this price deterred you from getting one day one? Or have you already registered interest? So, Luke, I know you're not a VR guy. You're not into PSVR2, right?
No, I can answer the cost stuff, but I'm genuinely interested in what you think on this one because you're the target demographic for this. You're invested in the PlayStation community. You've got a PS5. You got a PlayStation show. You've played extensive games on PSVR1. When you saw the price tag in real currency, American dollars, the greatest currency that ever was since the beginning of time, I'm sure.
That's right.
When you saw that
thank
price tag,
the Yalta conference for that one.
I don't know what that is, but I feel this is a political joke, and I'm going to go with
it. It is.
You're right.
World War II.
Right?
Yeah.
Didn't march that capital for nothing.
Whoa!
What?
Oh my God!
No, geez, you were there with me. All right.
You had her feet on the desk.
$549, man.
Yeah.
To me, that's hefty, but I'm not the guy that they're targeting right now. And
sure.
You love Jim Ryan, and you love that he raises your prices, and you're okay with all of this. Yeah. And really, PlayStation just dying because of people like you, I'm sure. Real talk, what do you think about this? Is this too much money for someone like you who's invested?
That's
the sigh alone is telling.
No, because I'm gonna. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm just gonna be yelled at because I don't think this is. First off, Kyle literally sounded like I go. It's gonna be somewhere between like 500 to 600, and Kyle is just like, yeah, I have a feeling it's gonna be $600.
Okay.
And it's like a price that we've called out for months now, and I thought y'all would be ready for it, but apparently I read the room entirely wrong. Listen. Would I love this thing to be $300, $400? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I would love to be paying more. But when you take a look at this, yeah, I would love to pay less. Oh God. Oh no, that's going to be clipped. I would love to be paying less for all my things. But when I'm hearing folks in the VR side of things, because I'm not going to claim that I'm the expert, this is whatever, but they're like, oh yeah, these specs are insane. This is an impressive piece of tech right here. And when I hear it also have a little more juice than, let's just say, the Quest Pro in terms of some of the specs that it has inside there, and it going toe to toe with something like the Index is a $1,200 headset alone VR unit. So yeah, this was going to be expensive. I don't know why we're shocked. I really don't know why.
I don't think it's that the tech doesn't justify or isn't justified, and its price isn't justified, I should say.
Yeah.
I think what's happening here is you've got a peripheral that only plays certain types of games and exists in a place that's more expensive than the console at a time where console consumers are really divided on what they think cost should be. You've got the Series S on the competitor side, being this like impulse buy price point during sale stuff. You've got the standard PlayStation 4 and 5, and the PS4 5 went up in price recently in a few markets, and you're not sure where it's supposed to fall. Is console gaming supposed to be cheaper?
Yeah.
Is it not? And some people are in with that base model anything, don't need an OLED, don't need this. Others are like diehard, got to have the every frame rate
Yeah.
pixel, everything. And so it's a tough market.
Well, I'll answer it with this. I think PlayStation is selling you that this is not just, they're not going to sell you a Series S console. They're selling you on the PlayStation 5 is a premium product. And we are only going after the premium product. You want the best thing? You want the best, games? It's here on PlayStation. Whether that's true or not doesn't matter. But that's what they're selling
working.
you. Yeah.
And it's working.
And when you take a look, and I mean, let's get into this. It actually bleeds into this next question by Jedi Master Ren. They write, how do you feel? Jedi Master Ren. How do you feel about the peripheral being more expensive than the device it's meant to be powered with? It seems egregious in my opinion, especially when I'm thinking about how hard it is for folks to grab a PlayStation 5. And if you don't have the console, you can't use this device that costs more. I'm really scratching my head here, guys. Maybe you could help me see this different. Either though matching the price of the PlayStation 5 would have been the better move, I feel. Thoughts? So I feel ya. I think it is weird that this thing costs more than a PlayStation 5. And not because I necessarily feel that way, but that's the general consensus. So I'm the outlier and I have to kind of be fine with that. Because to me, I'm like, yeah, you can't play this without a PS5 as of right now. PC users, you're going to find a way, you sneaky sons of guns. But when you buy a PlayStation 5 with this headset, you are able to play VR games. I'm taking a look at the competition where they are, if you want a similar version of that product, around $1,200 to $1,500, and you need a comparable rig to go with those headphones, you're looking at an easy $2,000 investment just to play VR. Now, that said, I think there's also something to be said that, some of these things like the Meta Quest Pro is meant to do other things other than game. But when you're talking about what the general use of VR is currently, which is from what I can understand and what I can tell, games, then I think you have a really good competitor on your hands for that premium headset. This is not the Meta Quest, right? Or the Quest 2, where even if you wanted to plug that into your PC to get better performance, you're still looking at something around that ballpark range. This is something that is spec-wise blows that thing out of the water. So is it egregious? I don't think so, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and please write in because it's literally been over, it's been a while now, y'all. But PlayStation VR launched at $400, and that was just with the headset. If you wanted to buy the camera and, God forbid, the move sticks, that was an easy $500 investment. It was more expensive than a PlayStation 4. You wanted the bundle with all of that. I believe at that time it's $500. It was more expensive than the PlayStation 4. We didn't call it egregious then because the tech was new and exciting. I think the difference here is we kind of now know what VR is, and we're either excited by it or not. And there hasn't been a company yet that proves or that has shown to the general audience why y'all should be excited. Because this right now, at this very point in time, is for the hardcore, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel, as the PlayStation gamer, that if you can't or don't want to spend money into their into PSVR2 right away, do you feel like you're missing out?
No. I think the biggest problem here is the games. Horizon looks great, but if I were to show someone outside of VR or outside of like, this is why you should be excited for this thing, I don't know if there's another game that comes next to Horizon that's going to get someone into PlayStation VR, if that makes any sense. So is there a killer app? It's still yet to be seen, and I think that is the biggest question mark that makes the pricing more questionable, if that makes sense.
Well, and you have to think they've done many experiences of both Batman and Iron Man, two pretty high profile hero games, and you think like maybe comic book stuff would get people in, but those weren't fully fledged experiences. Half-Life Alyx is the only one people consistently cite as being in the AAA experience.
And when you hear about PSVR2, a lot of people are like, let's see about Alex, and maybe I'll get in. So I really think they need to show something that's going to blow people's socks off. And the most important thing here, it's word of mouth. Word of mouth is going to sink or make this thing swim.
Bold prediction.
Okay.
Sincere bold prediction, by the way, not one of our many hilarious jokes, because we are always funny.
So funny, dude.
Yeah, and like, let me tell you something about that PSVR headset.
Yeah.
If I'm holding those PSVR2 controllers, and I hold out my hand, and I call a Leviathan axe, and I feel that haptic DualSense feedback style in those controllers, can you imagine? Whew. That's the app that would get, I think, people saying, you know what, I'm gonna get a second job for this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna work a few extra hours, whatever it is. That's the one. Imagine calling that Leviathan X, the blades of chaos whipping around, and you're feeling it in that controller. Whew.
All right, so Dralish writes in, and actually a similar question. Greetings, fellow travelers. With the hitting news on the price of the release date of PSVR 2, I'm feeling a bit underwhelmed. It's not the price that bothers me. It's the fact that they've yet to see a game, oh, here we go, that has me 1000% convinced of me getting a VR2 headset. Unfortunately, just throwing Astrobot and Horizon VR Edition, yes, there is still one or another Resident Evil third-person view I might enjoy in VR, nothing is really compelling me to invest in it. I know that you're excited about the technology, and it is a day one purchase for you. Still, what can Sony do to convince the early majority prospect like myself to commit? I look at my PlayStation VR1 headset lying in the corner and collecting dust, and somehow feel PSVR 2 will follow the similar fate within 12 months of the purchase. Your thoughts? This is another thing that they have to combat. Show commitment. And this is my biggest problem with this reveal, was it was all done in a blog post. What is with PlayStation in the goddamn blog post? You know, show commitment. Full stop. Here's a state of play VR. And I get it. The argument here is that VR doesn't look great to, you know, in a video format. Like, you have to experience it. It's about the word of mouth. But I would argue, show commitment to your fans that you believe in this thing, that this thing is the other pillar that when we talk about PlayStation that you say it is. I think by showing that commitment to your VR audience, that's going to get them on board. They're like, yeah, they believe in this thing. They threw together a state of play rather than they slapped together a blog post with a couple of videos attached. That's what you can do. And that's the thing that has me scared, is that I don't see what they did here today of showing commitment to the product, because it was just a blog post. That's what I'm nervous about.
I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. And what do we go back to 20 minutes ago? PlayStation's messaging mixed, confused. And when we look at our fears about Square and not knowing the direction they want to take the company, I think PlayStation's shown a lot of signs of not being sure what direction they want to go. And they do have a history of how do I put it? Like, not the console. Like, they had the PSP, they had the Vita, they had there was one of Vita TV, and a few other just things where it was like they were half foot in, not the whole way, and that's scary to someone that's saying, I'm going to spend $600 to invest in this new micro ecosystem that you're providing. What's the storefront going to look like? Are you putting R&D into the user experience? Is the UX going to be clean and simple? For God's sakes, can I hold the power button to turn it on or off, or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, where's the refinement in the subtleties? But also, these things going to sell out.
Yeah. I mean, Muffin Man writes in, hello, fellow Extra Life teammate. I look forward to seeing you, Muffin Man, on Saturday. If you had to predict it right now, do you think that the PlayStation VR2 will sell more than PSVR, or do you think the high price point and lackluster killer launch game could see the adoption not be the level of Sony expectations? VR is already a niche product, and I don't think the majority of consumers will be willing to pick this up without a substantial price drop. Great question. Yes, this is absolutely going to sell more than PSVR 1. Anybody that's saying different, you're going to look real foolish in March. And this is not just me saying it because I'm a Sony fanboy, whatever. The VR market is growing. It's a market that, don't get me wrong, a lot of companies are going to be losing money to try to grow. Take a look at Meta. But these companies are trying to find ways of where VR fits. And there are large communities of VR players that love their VR titles. Just because they're not outspoken on social media does not mean they don't exist. So, to me, I do think Horizon is the killer app. I think it looks great. I think the problem here is that we've seen a lot of VR games mixed in with state of plays or showcases from, the last, I would say, 18 months. And we don't really know, or we don't have a clear vision right now what the games look like. Again, I think if you showed us with a state of play, here's what these games look like, you'd have us way more excited, because games like Demio, I hear nothing but fantastic things about. Firewall Ultra, there's a big community there, a dedicated audience there. Call of the Mountain, that's an easy day one pick for me. Pistol Whip, Saints and Sinners 2 look great. There's a lot of PSVR 2 games, all of those PSVR 2 games that I'm excited for, but you showcased them over the last 18 months, so we kind of forgot about them, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. That's what I feel like the biggest problem here is. It's going to be the messaging that kills PSVR 2. It's not the tech. That makes sense?
I'm with you. It does make sense.
Fair enough.
It does. I think it's going to be one of those things where we're not going to get enough info on how it's going.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see numbers for a bit unless they're just astronomical, and I don't know that there's going to be is there enough hardware for it to be astronomical? I doubt it.
And I think that's the other thing is, like, this thing isn't, I don't even think, meant to be, oh, this is the killer. Oh my God, this is humongous. It's taking the world by storm. This is like, the install base is, by the time this thing comes out, about 30 million, right? A little bit more at that point. So, have your expectations adjusted, y'all. This is not going to be like, the Switch where it's 150 million units sold. I'd love it to be because I want VR to succeed. But I think my frustration is there are so many little VR devs at this point in time. I want them to be showcased. And I feel like blog posts are not showcasing these devs that are putting everything on the line for innovation. That's what I'm scared for. So that said, Luke, I have one more big story here. I threw this in just for you because we're pals. All right.
Big buddies. Yep. Okay.
Luke's mom and I are getting married.
Oh my God. We were Thunder Buddies and you betrayed me.
I know. Marvel and EA sign a 3-game deal starting with Iron Man. This comes from Ryan Denzel over at IGN. Marvel has entered an agreement with FIFA and Battlefield publisher EA to make at least 3 action video games based on the Marvel comics. As reported by Bloomberg, this deal will begin with the previously announced Iron Man game from EA Motive, with all 3 games coming to consoles and PC. Though details about what's coming after Iron Man are still thin, each game will feature its own original story set in the Marvel Universe. Perhaps known more for its sports and traditional shooter games, EA is looking to increase offerings with the Marvel deal. Quote, we have the intention and deliberate strategy to have a balanced portfolio, said Chief Operating Officer Laura Millie. There will be Marvel fans who don't play other EA games, unquote. It's unclear if the second and third game will be centered on a different Marvel characters like the Hulk or Thor, or if there'll be follow-ups to the Iron Man game, similar like Insomniac did with Spider-Man and the spin-off Miles Morales and the upcoming sequel. Nothing about the release schedule or single versus multiplayer focus was mentioned either, though we don't know what EA Motive's Iron Man game is single-player action adventure game. Motive is the developer behind the Dead Space remake and has previously worked on the likes of Star Wars Squadrons and Battlefront 2. So, Luke, coming right to you. Marvel said they they saw Star Wars and what EA has done with it with Jedi Fallen Order, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why they chose them to do this three game deal with
Mm-hmm.
EA. Now we know that Iron Man is coming. We know that there's a rumored Black Panther game that's
Mm-hmm.
practically been all but confirmed, and one
Mm-hmm.
mystery game. So I want to know your thoughts on this because EA has had a troubled history with licensed stuff because we're both
Right.
Star Wars fans and they've heard us
They've heard us.
badly.
Yeah.
But I want to know what your thoughts on this are, man, and I want to know what is that mystery game that you would like to see from them.
Oh man. So my thoughts are positive on this one. We've seen the Marvel games be treated pretty darn well in the last few years in terms of what John Drake and the people are doing over there as far as deciding what's going to be the game. I forget the Marvel guy who's kind of helping decide what's what. But when you look at Insomniac Spider-Man, when you look at Guardians of the Galaxy, there's been a lot of promise in what they're trying to do, right?
Yeah,
You had Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Guardians, all top tier. Avengers really missed the mark in that trying to do cross gen. If they
yeah,
had ditched that PS4 and Xbox One, we might have had something special. Because Lord knows I've played a lot of that game too, right?
sure. I made fun of you plenty of times for it.
Yeah, but I loved here, and here's the deal. Like I loved being an Avenger more than I disliked playing certain elements of that game,
Yeah,
right? I liked just flying around in my MCU costumes and pretending I was being whatever. I turned my brain off and I just replayed scenarios for kicks because that's what I had fun. I wanted to be Iron Man. So this is hugely thrilling to
yeah,
know that Anthem had some of the best flying in a mech suit
mhm,
ever. That Avengers had some really cool Iron Man moments. To know that the elements of that gameplay are out there and can be refined now into a single player experience, and you've got something like, okay, we've seen single player narrative experiences like Jedi Fallen Order. We've seen them in the Marvel universe like Insomniac Spider-Man. Get it right.
yeah. You,
That's telling.
you
I mean, here's
you have now. I love what you said here. The too long didn't read is you have the good examples and you have the bad examples.
mm-hmm,
You can learn from each of them. You can look at
mm-hmm,
what Fallen Order has did right. You could take a
mm-hmm,
look at what Avengers did wrong. You could
mm-hmm,
take a look at what games that had promise and what people loved from them. Anthem with the flying mechanics. How many times
mm-hmm,
did people say like, oh yeah, there are moments I felt like Iron Man, and then you
right.
take a game like Avengers that had moments that you should have felt like Iron Man. And now
Mm-hmm,
you have Motive, which is seemingly a really talented studio that does great with vehicles. And you have
yeah.
them making this Iron Man game going, all right, so here's the drawing board. Here's our line of yarn. Let's start
Mm-hmm,
tying these things together. That's
yep.
what has me really excited. I'm going to say something crazy. I
Okay.
think when this generation's all said and done, I think
Mm-hmm,
we're going to be singing some positive praises on EA's behalf because I see that there is a legitimate effort of not relying on the sports titles, but finally
mm-hmm,
branching out to do big IP to broaden that portfolio to bring back things that we love like Dead Space.
mm-hmm.
I think they're trying to do and make the right moves here. So I am rooting for them 110% here. If they can nail Iron Man, if they can nail Black Panther, they have a recipe for success here. That
Yeah.
said, Mystery Marvel game, I think Kyle and I played with this a bit. I want to know, what would you like to see? What's a superhero that you would like to have their own uh, game? What would you like it
Oh
to
man.
be?
So I'm bouncing things, and I'm going to stall for just a second because I
Okay.
want to point out that we got a Black Panther expansion in Avengers that had some really good story elements, right? So that was telling. So Black Panther, I think, is a great fit. A lot of things you can do with vibranium abilities and a great cast of characters because now uh, Black Panther is more than just the Black Panther. It brings in Wakanda. It
Yeah.
brings in so many other elements. Knowing that you're getting an Iron Man game there and seeing so many of the good things, it's like, all right, where do we want to take this? Is this 3 game deal? Are we trying to do a Miles Morales type thing
Mhm.
with War Machine, or is this like we want to stay with the Iron Man universe? We want to do its own thing, and I'm not sure where I want them to go because coming fresh off Gotham Knights and seeing Suicide Squad from Rocksteady, seeing the B tier characters
Mhm.
that are good get their time of day. Is that what Marvel's going to try and do? Because that's what it feels like phase 4 of their movies are trying to do.
Yeah.
Phase 4 of their content is trying to do. Is that what they're going to take in the gaming, or are they going to go with their top tier? Really and truly, we're seeing a big effort on Marvel's part to tease and push both the Fantastic Four and the X-Men for
Mhm.
a new wave of like this next generation of Marvel. Maybe the game falls into that category. We know Wolverine's happening
Sure.
on the Insomniac side. Maybe there's an X-Men element here where you're playing as just Nightcrawler, or
Yeah.
you're playing as Cyclops, or some
I was
element
gonna say
there.
Wolverine like a goddamn idiot.
But like,
Yeah.
is Human Torch too close to it? Is a Fantastic Four ensemble game similar to Guardians a possibility? There's a lot of ways they could take that third game,
Yeah.
but if Black Panther is truly that second game, I'm all there for it,
Yeah.
because what I got in Avengers was enough to say, oh, I want a full game with this idea in mind.
Um,
You know,
Here's one, and EA, this one's for free. Make a Moon Knight game styled like Arkham, and make it so that you have just like his three main personalities. His trees are those personalities, so he plays differently depending on what personality he's in right at that point in time.
that's a really cool idea.
Yeah. Just thought about it.
I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening because of that B tier element, but also
Yeah.
like just got Gotham Knights and they're making Suicide Squad instead of Justice League. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a cool idea though.
Thanks.
That's a really cool idea.
Thanks. I'm really just trying to pitch myself and just put it forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying it because we're on a show together. But honestly, no one wants to buy a Moon Knight game. So it's really.
Oh, you're dumb. You're dumb. You smell bad. All right, y'all. Now it's time for the moment you've all been waiting for. Our God of War Ragnarok review discussion with Steve Vigargi. I butchered your name, Steve. I'm so sorry. But stick with it.
Stevie hates you.
I go, Steve, I'm going to butcher your name. And he's just like, no, you did. And I pronounced it right the first time. I'm like, see, you nailed it. And then the second time I said it, and it was live, he's just like, oh, you had it right. So
Do it a third
you had
time.
right.
Tell me again. What is it?
Steve Vigvari. There you go. I got it. It took 4 tries.
There you go. You nailed
Steve, I'm sorry. I'm bad with pronunciation. I'm dyslexic. You know that. Anyway, God of War review discussion. There are spoilers of God of War 1. Very light. God of War 2018. So if you don't want to know anything, you've never played the 2018 game, don't watch this review. If you don't care about very light spoilers that we know now, we've literally seen in God of War Ragnarok trailer, then you're good. You're going to be fine. Spoiler-free conversation, of course, for Ragnarok review, but I just want to make that clear. If you haven't played the first game, you have your chance. I'm buying you time right now to skip ahead. Link in the description. If not, here you go. Your God of War Ragnarok discussion. And with me to talk about God of War Ragnarok, console creature's own Steve Vigvari. How are you, sir?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I am excited. I'm nervous. As of talking about God of War Ragnarok, we're a week away from it. I mean, this is our review conversation. As I know nothing, Jon Snow, you know all the things about God of War Ragnarok. And as a new fan to the series, like I came in with 2018, there's like a part of me that I'm scared if this game fails to meet the moment of the sequel. Like, I'm not expecting the sequel to be better than the first, but, I'm expecting it to hold that same weight, and I'm just afraid that it doesn't. So I know you're probably chomping at the bit to talk about God of War Ragnarok, and I want to just break in with the hard-hitting question: does it meet the moment? Is God of War Ragnarok a worthy sequel to God of War 2018?
Yes, unequivocally, yes. I think in terms of like when you look at sequels, you think best case scenario here, you look at Assassin's Creed to Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed 2 revolutionized everything that Assassin's Creed did. This isn't quite that. This is wholeheartedly a continuation of God of War 2018 from front to back. I mean, I think there are gameplay improvements, story improvements, stuff like that, but it is very part one, part two, almost in the same way that Last of Us is, in a way, without it feeling too different. I mean, Last of Us part two feels like a different game compared to part one. This very much feels like, here's chapter one, which was 2018, and we're right back into it. We're right back into the thick of Kratos and Atreus' story. This is part two. We're getting that conclusion. We're bookending this. It's going to be a complete vision.
Okay. So I like what you said here. Complete vision. It's a chapter two, a part two rather. This is a duology of God of War. And when you say it's, Last of Us Part 2 it does feel like a different game. Ellie does feel faster. She feels a bit more, I guess, agile in terms of being able to dodge things. Let's start with the gameplay. And first and foremost, anybody walking in, this is completely spoiler free. Don't worry about it.
Oh, absolutely.
We're not talking about anything like that. Very vague in terms of just how you like the story. Nothing like story beats or anything like that. And gameplay you're seeing here, if you're on the video version, is from all the trailers we've seen previously. That said, gameplay. How has it evolved? They talked a lot about, the shield bash or the new different types of shields with different types of abilities that you get to it. How evolved is it? Is it a fine evolution or a more like a refining of the combat?
I think it's more definitely a refinement. It takes a little bit of working your way up to it. So when the game starts out, it feels very much like, oh, I just dropped out of 2018. I'm picking back up here. Everything kind of feels the same. And then incrementally, they start introducing little new things here, whether it's like a new arrow for Atreus or like you're talking the shield, you start getting these new, not items per se, but like new abilities is a better way of putting it. And the game does a very good job of just introducing these new components to make it feel fresh and not make it feel like, here, we're going to offload all this new stuff onto your backs, and then you guys can figure it out. It makes the combat feel so much more fresh that way, so that every couple hours you're getting something a little new, whether it's armor or something new to the combat. So that way, by the time you get to the very end, you're like, oh, okay, this doesn't feel stale. It didn't overstay its welcome in terms of the gameplay.
Okay, that's great to hear. And yeah, when at the end of 2018, Kratos does have a couple of items on him. And I think it's safe to say at the end of 2018, you get the Blades of Chaos. It's in the trailers. Again, you're seeing it firsthand right now. So is this a moment, just like how every video game does, where, suddenly Kratos lost all his powers. He got depowered somehow. Are you starting with the weapons that you gained from the first game? Or do you have to find them again?
Yes and no. Okay. I want to keep things a little bit vague, but it does. The thing I love, because that is one of my biggest video game gripes, is you enter like a wholehearted sequel. And it's like, well, for whatever reason, you just don't have your abilities anymore. I feel like this game does the best job of addressing that, so that you don't enter the game being overpowered and have all the runes and everything. They address it right off the bat from the story. But that being said, you still have the Leviathan axe, you still have the blade, so you do feel like it's carrying some stuff over, but then addressing the fact that no, there's going to be progression in this game, there's something to work towards, while introducing a few really great surprises down the line via the story. But I don't want to get into that.
That's great to hear. And the one thing too, when it comes to the combat, you talk about it being a refinement, and the dev team talking about how they wanted the player to feel like they're playing with their food, or they want Kratos to play with their food. How does that actually in reality work out for the player? How are you playing with your food in quotes?
It's so funny because that they nailed it on the head with that. There are moments in the game where you can use a combo, whether it's the axe or the blades, pair it with Atreus in the back, and spam his arrow button and everything. So you can throw an axe, it hits the target like up off the ground, pull out the blade, start whipping them with them and everything, while Atreus is like nailing him, bang 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 with the arrows, and he's just like stunned in the air. and it really does feel like Kratos is just toying with this with this like grub of a creature, and it does make for some like really great animations. But then you move down the line, and then you face like a very difficult opponent, so kind of there are challenging moments, but yeah, I do really love those moments where you feel like a God of War.
Mm. And now we talk about the Leviathan axe, the Blades of Chaos. How are they in this game? Do they feel like they're working in tandem with each other more? Like for me, I felt like in 2018, I was strictly like the blades were cool and I like them a lot. They're for my AOE, but the Leviathan axe, there's a personal touch to it, right? That's my one-to-one go-to thing. Do you feel like there's more, I guess, parity between the weapons?
No, I mean, it's the exact same feeling as I had in 2018. I love the Leviathan axe. That feeling of pulling it back into your hand feels ungodly, especially on PlayStation 5 with the haptic, the adaptive triggers. That feels so good to just play with. That I'm sorry to say, Blades of Chaos, they take the back seat. They don't really intertwine that much unless like you want to go out of your way to do a move like throw the axe, pull out the blade, start hitting them like that, retrieve the axe, do something like that. You kind of have to go out of your way to marry those two in an engagement. Otherwise, you could just effectively use the axe if you wanted to and pull out the blades when you want to. The game doesn't really force you or encourage you to use them in tandem in any meaningful way.
Fair enough. The shield, I I don't think I really ever used it much in 2018. I never found that it held much of a place for me. One of the big changes is like with these different shields, you get different abilities. Do you
Mhm.
find that those different abilities have you using that more, or at least using its effects more in battle?
You have to. It has become as mandatory of a component in combat as the axe or the blades.
Hmm.
Um, so what happens is, and maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while since I played 2018, but I don't remember there being like a parry system in 2018. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just like a skip line. But in this one, there's very much a definitive like parry system where the enemy will attack. Yellow like circle will appear over his attack um, if you hit the block button at the right time, you'll parry his attack and then kind of like bash him with it. Then there are enemies with like that do like a different attack, and it's a blue circle that kind of like expands, and they do like a big area effect. You have to run in there, double tap the shield, he'll bash and interrupt the enemy. So you're very much forced to be using the shield as not only a defensive piece of armor, but as a weapon itself to counteract the enemies and their attacks.
Did you like that change, or did you feel like it was a needed add-on?
I liked it only because like you, I don't really remember using the shield all that much in the first game. Hence why I don't remember if there was a parry system. So
Fair enough.
I do very like again now I feel like there's a family of piece of equipment. It's the axe, the blade, and the shield all working together in this combat system.
Okay. And one more thing about the combat before it leaves me. They
Yeah.
talked about enemy variety. I think the biggest sticking point with 2018 was I was fighting the same dudes over and over again. That big ogre with the big,
Mm,
pole arm, he had a lot of cousins.
yep.
So, how is the enemy variety in this game? Did they address that issue, or is it still there?
I think they address it, but very in a very minute way.
Okay.
I do feel like now that I'm, reached the end and everything, by the third quarter of the game, I'm like, oh, we're doing this guy again. All right,
Mm,
now we're doing these mobs. Okay, I do kind of wish that there was a better like cycle of enemies.
fair.
That being said, though, I will say this game has some outrageous boss battles, and I'm talking like
Ooh.
on par with some of the best that 2018 delivered. I'm like, ooh, these are really cool high level boss engagements.
All right, excellent. And last but not leastly, before we get into the other stuff, Atreus.
Hmm.
I know we can't say much about Atreus. I
Right?
wouldn't want to.
No.
But I guess in the simplest terms, how have they evolved his combat in the game?
Again, I don't want to address it too much, but I'll give a shout out to Atreus, our little
Boy.
boy, all grown up now. I think it's much better, to be honest. I think in terms of just not only like his personality, which I'm sure we'll kind of get into, but just his presence in battle and everything. I do feel like he has more of an importance. Whether or not like it's because of his new like
He's
arrow
not just
abilities and stuff.
Yeah, he's not a glorified
Exactly.
circle button.
Exactly. In a way, he still is, and
Okay.
I want to preface that in a way he still is, but now it feels more of an importance where you'll end up with enemies that specifically you need him to spam his arrows
Yeah.
to in order to open them up for an attack from Kratos. So that being said, I feel like they've done a lot of reworking in order to make him feel like a prime component of that moment-to-moment gameplay. But that being said, at the end of the day, there are still moments where he does feel like, oh, I just got to hit this button in order to open this little enemy up for an attack. That way Kratos can come in and finish off the job.
All right, cool beans. Now let's get right to the story of what we can talk about. And I think in the broadest terms, Ragnarok. Go for it.
Right.
It's coming.
It's coming. It's right around the corner. Both literally and the game itself.
Right.
Yeah, the game picks up 3 years down the line. You got Kratos, who just saw. I mean, I guess we're talking a little bit of spoilers from 2018. It's been long enough.
I feel
right?
like 2018 were fair game, but Ragnarok, of course.
This game, obviously, we're not going to do anything. So yeah, Kratos is obviously reeling from looking at the mural and seeing, this prophecy that he's gonna die and everything. So he's internalizing that, while at the same time you got Atreus who's internalizing the same revelation that he's Loki, that he's half giant, he's dealing with all these emotions. So you kind of have Loki or Atreus looking out for all these answers. All the while you have the backdrop of, hey, Ragnarok is coming. It's they call it, I'm gonna butcher this name, Fimbulwinter, which is this 3-year long winter that precedes
the end of
Ragnarok. And so then there's also the backdrop of, hey, Thor's out there, Odin's out there, there's all these looming threats, Freya is still out there. So they've got a lot of components working here, and
do you feel like
it makes for a very interesting sequel, I think. Yeah.
I know, in the broadest of terms, do you think those components work?
Yes, but it took a little convincing, a little time to get in there to massage the story, because coming into it, knowing that it's a duology, knowing that the team has already said this is going to be the end of the saga, I was like, this is a lot to be working with. You got Ragnarok, you got Thor, you got Odin, you got Freya, you got all this stuff. You got even dealing with the human emotions that Kratos and Atreus have to go through. I was like, this is a lot to kind of process and give time and development to each of these. And going through it, I was like, oh, they're doing this in such a smart way. I think the biggest thing of this game, and I'm going to say it, aside from the gameplay, aside from the story and everything, is the writing. The writing is so strong for each of these characters that I was shocked by some of the narrative threads that they're pulling here, and the way that characters are interacting with each other. I was like, man, there's so much heart in this game that I think this is going to be my biggest takeaway from this game, is just the writing and the narrative of these characters versus anything else.
Oh, wow. And that was the one thing that I was a little skeptical. I think like the fan base entirely is like, we know Kratos took his time killing the Greek pantheon.
Yes.
Seems like the Norse one, he's just rushing through it. Do you feel like this, I guess, Ragnarok serves enough for that sequel of like, yeah, you know what? As we go through everything, this is a nice way to just say this is the definitive ending to the story. Do you think there's maybe ways that we can get into, or that you would have liked to see rather, in like a it being a trilogy instead, or you think the story is near perfect where it is?
So I'm hesitant to get into too much specifics, but that being said, I do feel like what the team has achieved with this game and the vision of making this the part 2, the final chapter, the second half of this duology, I think that they did a great job of handling the story as is and how they intended. I know that Cory Barlog, while not the director of this game, he was the one that made the final say of, hey, let's wrap it up, maybe to move on to a totally different IP or whatnot. I don't know. But I think that's a very smart call in this specific instance, where, like you said, had they gone for like a trilogy, I think it might have been a little long in the tooth, to be honest. So I think what they've done here is very smart.
Masterful, even like the way you're talking, I'm thinking this is like Godfather Part 1, and then this is Godfather Part 2 in terms of sequel.
I think so. I think that when people look at this, people are going to be looking at, okay, it's not just God of War 18 and God of War Ragnarok. It's both of them kind of put together in a way that makes for a very compelling, full front to back story 1 and 2. And then they kind of just avoided going too long, getting a part 3 in there, and kind of, let's hedge our bets at 2 very strong entries versus maybe, going for a third and, not delivering the same way that you could with 2 rock solid games.
Fair enough. Performances. I mean, we can't go into specifics here, and I wouldn't want to, but still as strong as ever?
Oh, big time. I mean, we can kind of talk about just some strong performances. You got Christopher Judge back. One of my favorites, I think, is Ryan Hurst as Thor. I love him. Loved him in Sons of Anarchy.
Same.
Loved him in a whole bunch of other of his projects and stuff. Bates Motel, he was great in as well. This one I was like very much. It's so funny because you do try to remove yourself so much from the MCU, the Thor from the MCU and everything, and into this new project, and just seeing Thor in this very different way. But man, there are some moments with Thor that just hit me. Like, and I'm talking like on a deep, emotional, human level. I was like, holy hell, the writing, the performances are delivering on this character in very unexpected ways.
Is it emotional, like I sympathize with him, or emotional of like, oh, this is like a Thanos-like character?
Well, it's funny. At moments, he does sound very much like Josh Brolin, where if you close your eyes, you'd be like, this is Thanos. But that removed, this is very much like a human. This is something that's resonating with me on a very, very deep level. So it's, yeah.
All right. I like it. I dig it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about level design real quick. Last time we were in Midgard, right? I believe so, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Now we're discovering all the places, all the things to go.
Right. Yeah.
How's that level variety? Is it welcome? Do we feel like we're rushing along, or do you feel like the pace is very nice through these levels?
It's good. I do feel like Mimir at one point, he makes a remark, and it's no spoiler or anything, but he makes a remark of like, hey, you guys are actually, exploring the 9 realms and what an achievement that is and everything. But I think one of the cool things is that, you're kind of re-exploring places you've been to before, whether it's, Muspelheim or Helheim and stuff like that. And you're actually in some instances going back to the exact spots that you were in 2018. And I'm not talking like, oh, it's a rehash of the same level design. They're just like reusing assets and stuff like that. They're doing it in a way that's like very smart. And again, no spoilers. I want to preface this. There's one moment where you're exploring the map and everything, and Atreus runs to the right, and for no reason. And he's like, oh, there was a chest over here the last time we were here. Oh, I guess they moved it. And I was like, oh, that's so brilliant. Like, yeah, for this moment in time, Kratos and Atreus are re-exploring this place that they've been to years ago. And they're like, oh, I remember going here. I'm going to address that via the game and the narrative. Oh, they just moved the chest. That used to be that players actively went and opened themselves. That being said, there are very new environments and biomes and stuff like that. And I think that they do introduce like a very welcome change. That being said, though, I think that the game does overuse the maybe not a trope, but just like the system of, oh, let's go back to this place we've already been to,
right?
And kind of touch base with like other characters and stuff like that. So by the end, I did feel like, okay, now we're rinsing and repeating a little too much here, where we're going back to the exact same spots and maps that we went to, hours before. So there's a healthy balance, I think, where you are exploring these out of these world maps and stuff, but then going back and I'm like, maybe I would have cut this like small section out so that we could have avoided this, and maybe just left it up to, oh, you can go back here for side quests and collectibles and stuff and not have it draw so much via the narrative.
Fair enough. So do you feel like we're spending enough time in these biomes, or do you feel like we're chucking all through?
A little bit of A and B, where I feel like we're overstaying and I'm talking like just a touch where I'm
Okay.
like, this could be like 15 minutes less, and this would have been a perfect amount of time here. And then some biomes, I'm like, oh, or some, of the 9 realms were here. I'm like, oh, this is used really smart. I almost wish we could have stayed more.
Okay.
Had more time here. So I think it's an even bag, and maybe it comes down to personal preference. Maybe it's just me liking one versus the other and stuff like that.
All right, now this is where I get a little flame warrior. Are you ready for this?
Cheers, yeah.
I heard this is just a PlayStation 4 game. It feels like I'm playing a PlayStation 4 game still.
Oh.
let's talk
I
about
mean,
let's talk
yeah,
about how this baby runs under the hood,
sure,
over
yeah.
the hood.
Mhm.
Graphically speaking, is it visually? I guess. Do you see it visually an upgrade from PS4 to PS5 type jump of like a Horizon, or do you feel like this is a half step?
I think it's more leaning towards like an optimizational upgrade where you can tell the HDR is on point, the color gamut is on point. That being, I mean, obviously it all depends on the display you're using,
Sure.
whether it's a monitor or TV.
LG
So that might be
C1.
pending. Right there with you, buddy.
Exactly.
So you're in for a treat.
Goddamn.
Yeah, and the frame rates are great as well. Up to 100 and 120. LGC1 again. This is
right.
not an ad. But that being said,
But it could
from like
be.
it could be LG. Call.
That's right.
Call my friend here. But when you look at like specific assets in the game and stuff, you can kind of tell that no, this is still a PlayStation 4 game at its very like heart of hearts.
Okay.
Just made better for the PlayStation 5, which is where I played it. That being said, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. It's still a gorgeous game. The character models look beautiful. The textures on, there's one moment where, Kratos is looking at his hands and I swear to God, they look like real hands. I was blown away, and I was like, but then you look at like small rocks and debris and stuff. I'm like, well, this doesn't look the same as what it could if this was just a pure PlayStation 5 game.
All right, fair enough. I like the honesty. I applaud it, sir. I applaud it.
Yeah.
To the people in the comments, please do, y'all.
Of course. Be nice. And then the other thing I did want to address, because there was like a huge, kerfuffle when the previews came out a couple weeks ago, and it was the whole thing about, the hidden loading screens where you go through like a crack in the rock, or you boost a buddy up a ledge and stuff like that. This game has them all over the place, and it does really ring true of like, yeah, this is just reminding me this is a PlayStation 4 game. This is something I have to just get over because it's not inherently ruining my experience. No. But it every time it happens, I'm like, that's right. This isn't a PlayStation 5 game. And this is kind of just a reminder, because I do kind of wish the game was remodeled in a way to get rid of those. Almost, but it can't inherently, because it's not like Spider-Man, for instance, where it's like, oh yeah, we'll just get rid of the subway trips. You can just, it's instant. You would have to just get rid of all these moments where Kratos is ducking behind something, and then skulking through, a crack and that. But
do you feel like it's hindered because of it, or
not a whole lot? But every time every time it happens, I'm just constantly reminded, like, oh yeah, this is a PlayStation 4 game. This is the reason why it's there on the back, and they're loading up new assets and stuff like that. So it's a reality that we all kind of should understand, but at the same time, I wish it wasn't the case. I wish that, we were at a place 2022 where this game was just a PlayStation 5 game, and we've moved past this, but that's a larger discussion entirely.
Much larger discussion.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it. So let's talk about, last but not leastly, let's talk about the sounds, them beautiful haptics. So sound-wise, music, score, all that, how was it, my man? Because I loved, and I still do love that God of War 2018 soundtrack. Is this one on par?
Yes. Bear McCreary returned, so you get his flavor back. And I'll say that there are quite a few moments in the game where the soundtrack has given me chills, whether it's because of the moment that is leading up to, like, via the narrative, or just because there's a cool action sequence or stuff like that, or whether or not it's drawing back to, the themes of previous God of War games, you get the core like theme from like previous games and stuff, which we've heard in 2018 and stuff. So I think that they use the score, the soundtrack very, very great in this game. And, it continues that narrative of like, hey, this game is backed by great sounds, great audio design, and everything like that. Great music.
Yeah. How does the combat sound? The swing of the Leviathan axe. How does it sound? Like I'm assuming in the dual sense and also on screen. How do those enhance your gameplay?
So there's nothing via the DualSense. I think that, again, going back to it being like a cross-gen game, the DualSense integrations are very limited to the haptics and the adaptive triggers. I know. I'm sorry. I was a little disappointed. I wanted something to come through that speaker. I was hoping at one moment there would be like some sort of integration there, some grander integration, but unfortunately it's pretty limited. Okay. But throughout the game, the combat sounds great. The everything going, on screen, pairing it nicely with, the audio is good. I don't think there's any notable standouts via the combat or anything. I think it's all backed by Bear McCreary and his talents as a composer.
All right, well, there you go. There you have it. That's been our God of War Ragnarok review. Your final take for God of War Ragnarok. Is this the game that goes toe to toe with the Elden Rings, Steve?
Guaranteed. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a great year for video games, all in all, I think. But when it really comes down to it, I think, a lot of people are going to be saying to themselves, is it Elden Ring? Is it God of War? Myself included, which is like the game of the year. And I think a lot of people are going to struggle with that. But I think, Sony Santa Monica really came out swinging. They delivered something that is, I think, on par with what they delivered in 2018. Very strong performances, very strong gameplay. And whether or not, that resonates more or less than what Elden Ring did and what From Software did, remains to be seen. I think that's again a much larger conversation that I myself am going to have and internalize, lose sleep over this next month or two. But it's going to be interesting to see where the majority of people kind of land on this. I'm beyond excited to know where people land.
That's awesome, because for me, that's, I think, the number one thing I was so nervous about. I don't know why, but I was so nervous of like, where's this gonna fall? Is this are we putting too much hope in this game being this huge juggernaut if it fails to impress? And it looks like it's impressing you plenty. So I'm digging what I'm hearing, man. It's awesome to know that this is one of those, I guess, highlights of 2022 as we enter really, or now in full swing of the holiday season, as we've seen so many games kind of just fall flat. This one seems to be rising above, which is awesome to see. That said, Steve, where can people find you, good sir?
You can find me on Twitter at @sfigvari.
Ooh, simple as that. And of course find him in all his work there. Steve, yet again, thank you so much for killing it and helping us out. It means so much.
No, I appreciate the invitation. I love hanging out with you. I love talking to you about the latest and greatest video games coming to PlayStation, and sharing my reviews with your audience as well. You guys are awesome. So thank you once again.
Yeah, and with that, let's go back to the show. Ooh, Kratos has a mustache. Shaved the beard. Can you believe that?
Did he actually? There we go. I don't know. I was like, really? That's because I went media dark, so I'm like, that's a possibility. I can see it.
He just mustache. He did a Freddie Mercury on us. Yeah, like our good friend Ames. You saw his Halloween costume?
I saw his wife's Halloween costume.
Oh, what a prevert! He looked like Freddie Mercury. I could not look away. I'm like, that's Freddie Mercury. You're not the Addams Family. You're about to go live on World Aid right now.
Like, God, Joe, come on.
He looked like Freddie Mercury. All right. Yeah. Flash news.
But at the end, right?
Oh, Jesus Christ! We gotta go fast. Gotta not get canceled. Gotta go fast. All right. HBO. Last of Us HBO show premieres January 15th, 2023, with the poster too, and ooh, it looks good. I'm excited. This is
Have to.
I love the poster because it is very reminiscent to me of like the Last of Us cover. So this, I'm
more
excited.
excited for the show than the game. I hope the show. I mean, the show looks like it's gonna be great.
That's what I was gonna say. You don't like Last of Us.
No.
Are you excited for the show?
Yeah. Yeah. I do not like The Last of Us. I think it's very, very much not fun, despite being high quality. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Shut
It's
your
not
mouth.
fun.
You sound stupid.
It's not fun. But
you sound
watching
stupid
that
when you talk.
experience,
Yeah.
watching the actors in that experience, absolutely. The game felt I don't know, up its own ass.
Oh my god! My audience, you say that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They just didn't. And I was like, all right. Like I know The Last of Us is the reason this show exists, and I love how much that game means to so many people.
That's right.
But like, it's not fun for me to play, and I'm the guy that wants the video game ass games, right? That's what I want. That's what I want in games.
Audience, I apologize for this man's slander.
I apologize for nothing. And the fact is that poster, yeah, I want to watch that experience, Joe. Right. Yes.
Here it is. Can't wait. I'm really pumped. I really do think this is, and I'm hoping this is really big for them. That trailer gave me a whole lot of hope, and it got my brother into The Last of Us. Like, he saw it, he's like, all right, time to do my homework. Let's do this. And I freaking love that. So yeah, I think we got something here. I think we got something here.
It's gonna be great.
All right, here's bad news.
You, Halo.
Don't show Joel's ass, for the love of God. Sackboy isn't off to a great start on PC. This comes from VGC. According to independent data tracker Steam DB, the game has a current concurrent player count of just 610 since it hit Valve's platform in October 27th. While it's worth noting that Little Big Planet series has never been one of Sony's blockbuster franchises, the figure is dramatically lower than PlayStation's other first-party PC games have managed. And at the time of publishing, the title ranked number 863 in terms of concurrent players in a total of 386. I felt like this is not a surprise.
I stopped listening. What?
There you go. All right, here's one. Luke, I'm confusing all my white people names. Luke, have you heard this? Have you seen this? Activision's Call of Duty rebounds with $800 million launch weekend. The previous high mark was the 770. Oh, this comes from Bloomberg, by the way. Sorry. 775 million set in 2011's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 across a 5-day launch. Note that this is with adjusted inflation, that would be a total of $1 billion today. This was done in 3 days. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Ooh. Now, this is where I get to be on a soapbox for just a second here and say Activision provided us with a code. And Luke, I love this game. Sure. Like, as of recording, as this publishes, I am about to platinum this game. This will be my first ever Call of Duty platinum throughout my span of the entire game franchise. What they've made here is something that I'm so surprised resonated with me so much, because as you guys know, Modern Warfare reboot, I was surprised how much I loved the single player, but I dropped off from the multiplayer pretty quickly. This game has its hooks in me from the single player side all the way to the multiplayer end. They really did listen to a lot of the feedback, at least in my perspective, a lot of the feedback from the fans in the beta, and are continuing to address those as we go through. But in terms of just single player, it took what we loved from the reboot, that breach and clear aspect, that more like we're going into houses from Modern Warfare, and they added elements of just intensity. Like, there is a point in this game where, several points, you breach and clear a room and you don't know who's friendly or who's foe. Or you'll see a person drop down their gun, and as soon as you turn around, they go back to pick it up. And it's just like, it's in those moments that add that extra layer of intensity that it makes the gameplay just feel more visceral, if that makes any sense. And then midway through this game's story, it flips the script of what Call of Duties could be. Like, yeah, you have your big action set piece. There's one midway through where you're literally jumping from car to car, similar to like Uncharted 2's train level, to get to the end. And it is so much gosh darn fun. And then the next mission is where you are stranded in a city. You have nothing. You are mortally wounded, and you're trying to get from one side of the city to the other while there is a army searching and hunting for you. And it just harkens to, it really is a love letter to classic Resident Evil and The Last of Us, in terms of if you like duct tape and making weapons out of pots and plants. It's there. And that level alone, which is called Alone, is one of the best cases of a franchise taking what you love, flipping the script, and executing it perfectly. And taking those elements and replaying them for you and making it not feel stale, or not making it feel like it outlasts its welcome. The single player, to me, is so darn good. It is going to be, at all said and done, top 3 Call of Duty stories for me.
Easily.
It is stellar. I loved it. And if you're a fan, like if you're a fan from the 08 game and you come to this, there's so much warranted fan service, especially towards the end, that you feel like you're coming together again, if that makes any sense. So it feels like you're visiting an old friend while it's doing something really different. So I can't recommend Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 enough. It's actually one of my favorite games this year. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. I feel like such a Chad. I feel like I just paid $8 for a check mark.
Credit where due, though. I mean, credit where due, because you're further in the campaign. You finished it.
Yeah,
I've
I'm
not
veteran.
finished the campaign.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm playing it on hardened right now, and I'm really enjoying my time with it. And it's been one of many reminders of late that reviews don't mean everything, because I've seen a lot of critics that aren't there for it. And I'm having an absolute blast with it. The multiplayer is fantastic. I tweeted out this morning at the time of this recording that I just spent like $40-$50 in Fortnite on Star Wars stuff and Black Adam, and then went and played COD. Because that's just how good that's just how good that multiplayer is, and I'm having a blast with it. And it does feel like they listened in a lot of ways. It helps, I think, that the campaign is so good, the gunplay is so good, the multiplayer is so good, and we've not heard horror stories about the developers. It's a lot easier to get in on this one than it was for Vanguard. I didn't even play Vanguard. And so, and for context, Activision provided code for me as well. And I'm absolutely, everybody should buy this. Full price, go for it. Call of Duty games don't go on sales often, but do it. It's fun.
It's a lot of fun. And even like the multiplayer element, to me, changes up a lot of things to what we know COD for being. And some things for the better, some things for the worse. Like, I do feel like the weapon system is convoluted as all heck, but once you,
it's overwhelming at first.
Yeah, it's very overwhelming, but once you learn it, it really teaches you to go and play other weapons and play different styles, and hopefully you learn and become a more versatile COD player by doing that. So to me, though I don't know how much I loved the weapon system or some of the perk system, or even some of the maps. I'm looking at you, the Mexican border map. You're bad. You're a bad map. I'm sorry. There's a lot to love here. There's so much to love here. And engorged. I can't, I'm thinking of playing it right now. I just want to finish editing the show to play it. Yeah.
October, man. I mean, I've been playing the Resident Evil 8 expansion, finished that.
Yeah.
Gotham Knights, finished that. Playing an indie game or two. There's we have Plague Tale Requiem, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, God of War Ragnarok's on the way in a few days. Sonic Frontier.
What was that? I'm sorry. What did you say? Something?
Coughed.
That's crazy.
And Xbox has got Pentiment coming. If you care, I don't. There's a lot happening, right?
Yes.
There's a lot happening and news. It's it hits in waves, man.
Yeah.
It's
It
dope.
definitely
There's
does.
so much to play. Like anybody that's doing that 2-for-1 deal at Target or saving up for the holidays, this is one of those things where you could legit have something on your Christmas list, even if you're a guy that can buy everything himself,
Yep.
and you won't get to your stuff in time
Yeah.
because there's just so much. It's dope.
Phil Spencer. We're talking about him again. And hopefully, honestly, this nails it down. All right?
He said it. He said it.
Please, for the love
We're not
of God.
taking it from PlayStation.
Phil Spencer said on Same Brain Podcast. And first off, shout out to Same Brain Podcast. They were not getting credited at all for this interview. And I know you probably feel like, yeah.
And
the pain.
Shout out to them. Yeah, seriously. And shout out to Phil for just answering the actual question because they didn't ask this question. And he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to say it.
Let's just say it. And probably that was a PR move, but whatever. Phil Spencer on the Same Brain Podcast on Call of Duty on PlayStation. He's quoted to say, as long as there's a PlayStation out there. Actually, let me say it like Obama. As long as there's a PlayStation out there to ship, our intent is to continue shipping Call of Duty on PlayStation. Let me be clear. There you go.
Just like Minecraft.
Just like Minecraft.
They did that exact thing. And they're making money on it.
There you go. And that's Phil Spencer's mission. It's stated clear as day now. And listen, it is, I've saw some people on Discord, it is interesting. This kind of does strike a little different from what Satya has said of like, let us compete, so we're competing. It does seem like they're having to change their tune a bit because, regulators have some concerns. Whether we share those concerns or not, doesn't matter because they're the ones thinking it. They're going to say what they need to say to get this thing through.
And I want them to get it through. And not because of COD. Bring back those IP.
Yep.
Free some of those studios, man.
Yep. Golly.
That's a whole different show.
Yeah. So there you go. Let it be done. All right. Luke, are you holding on to something?
I'm ready for the drop.
Prepare the drop. Here are the latest deals and deals coming to the PlayStation storefront this week. November 1st, Mission Command Recharge on PS5, PS4. Tractor Journey on PS5, PS4. November 2nd. Oh, come on. What is this word? Dormian Story of Seasons. Friends of the Great Kingdom on PS5, PS4. Let's shorten that. That's a long title. Feels like that is one title. That's one title. That is one game. This is one game. Hat Up on PS5, PS4. Shatter Remastered Deluxe on PS5, PS4. November 3rd, Die by the Blade on PS5, PS4. Go Song on PS5 and PS4. The Chant on PS5. Entropy Center, which I'm hearing great things about, PS5, PS4. WRC Generations. Didn't we just have one of these? I don't know. PS5, PS4.
No, this is the last one with that license or whatever.
Okay.
It's a big deal for the people that care about that. For real.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever.
And November 4th. No, whatever to you people. Bratz Flaunt Your Fashion on PS4. Ooh-wee. All right, we got a few questions this week. Let's get it done in our favorite segment, the Sony Pony Express. Luke, I want you to yeehaw on this, all right? Ready? 3, 2, 1. Yeehaw! God damn. All right. You did. You did good. Right. Yeah.
I'm here for you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, man. Maximum Carnage writes in, greetings, Slanger and Banger. I'm going to ban you in a minute. Been listening to the Trophy Room show from the shadows for over a year now.
Can I be Hanger?
I hate you. And today, I write to you both in hopes that I can adjust my karma in a positive way. All right, unbanned. On Thursday last week, whilst listening to the Trophy Room episode at work, I, for the first time in my 7-year greenkeeping career, took a direct hit from a fully driven golf ball. Oh, shit. All right. Damn. That is a pelt. Like, I've been shot with a paintball ball. Like, that has to be triple.
I've seen Caddyshack. It looks painful.
Yeah, I've seen Caddyshack. Yeah, that's right. I'm incredibly lucky that it only struck my pinky toe, but it still hurt like a mother bitch. So instead of being more cautious in my role, I decided to join as a patron and today donated $25 to the Children's Miracle Network Hospital through Extra Life. Joe, my guy, I hope Big Boss Badbit is doing much better. Oh, thank you. Have a great week, Max. Thank you, Max. I like the kind words. That made me feel nice. Dewane Raksha writes in, PlayStation Stars continues to be a mixed bag, but I was personally excited to see Play Whatever Challenge as I use my remote play feature pretty frequently and think it's great. Will either of you be giving remote play a second or first chance in order to compete in this task? The reward for playing 4 times for 5 minutes or more is 75 coins versus 50 coins for spending on a $70 game that is Call of Duty for comparison. Oh, dude, I'm doing that right now. Are you kidding me? Free points? I'm all about that. Hey, Luke, are you a believer in the remote play? I know, like, you play a little bit of that xCloud. Do you think there's a true future in it?
Yeah, there's a future in it.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. There's a future in it. I don't know that it's going to be one that's relevant in here in the States in the immediate future, but like if someone's rocking it right now, keep enjoying it. And there's a lot of people, you and I are quite privileged in that we have our own TVs even.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
LGC
So,
ones,
yeah, there's a
baby.
future.
Yeah. I think so too. I think I'm just not the age group for it because I don't got good eyes. I think this is for the kids. You know, like I think Microsoft saw Fortnite on mobile and they're like, yeah, we could do that. And we want to. And I think that's what they're going to be aiming for. But for me, my old man eyes and UI having to probably adapt in the future to that mobile setup, that's what I think they're going to have to figure out. Once they figure that out, heck yeah, I'll be doing that for sure. Vontae Tatted writes with this question. Now, they asked this last week. And I like this question because this is different for both of us. Ready? Sony Pony Express question. Yeah. Congratulations on taking your show on the road. Sony wants you both to take it to the next level. They have made amends with the OG commercial king himself, Mr. Kevin Butler. Remember him? Of course. And Sony wants to know if you can make your own style commercial to promote one game and your podcast, what would it be? And how would it go? Your budget is unlimited. Sky's the limit for creativity. And as always, love you guys. Shiny side up. Okay. While you're thinking about this, I want your Xbox version of this. Okay. For me, we have to be careful here, guys. We have to be careful because take a look at the latest commercial for God of War. It has like Ben Stiller in it. And all the gamers hate it. I haven't seen it. I will. Maybe I'll turn it on, but whatever. Just haven't had the time. But gamers are so picky when it comes to commercials. We never want it to be or feel too mainstream. Because to us, it's cringe. At least to me, it feels that way. Mm-hmm. So for me, I like the Billy on the Street skits where Billy Eichner runs up to people on the streets of New York and yells questions at them and then insults them for like them getting it wrong. I love those. That's exactly what I would do, but I would go inside GameStops and Best Buys and just get totally kicked out.
Hey, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm my mom's walking around the mall and I had nowhere to go.
Exactly.
Oh, so you're not an actual customer? No.
All right, great.
De-alphabetize the Xbox section.
Exactly. I'm just a dumb kid. God, remember working at GameStop? Those are the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst.
I always remember like the one kid running into the gondola with all the PlayStation, like, you know, like
The
cards.
Yeah.
And took us legitimately 3 hours to get it all back. Oh, it's
I
the
once
worst.
asked a lady to ask her child to stop messing up everything because he was just knocking stuff off, and she told me some very vile things about what to do to her at what time of the month, and I was very disturbed. And I was the only one in the store that day. And I was like, boy, I hate this place.
Honestly, I would also probably do that as well. Share like war stories of GameStop employees of like dumb questions that they had to answer.
Dude, it's been long enough. I would love to do that show. And I could just say, we should get our buddy Kev on and just talk about all our war stories, man. Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Not so much PlayStation related, but I feel like that would. It's like, no, we do not have Mario on the PlayStation. like mean
My
tweets.
son said it had a Mario on the Xbox.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, you know what? I do mean tweets, but like with PlayStation mascots, you know?
Yep.
Oh,
Okay, there you
God.
go.
Yeah, there you go. Twitter's an awful place. All right.
Yep.
Lastly, Una writes in. Hope you guys... Una's going to take us on a ride. I have not read this question, but I already see a
Always safe to do on a podcast. Good
yeah,
work.
always safe to do. Hey guys, hope you're both doing well. Welcome to November, where the word boy gets used. Holidays are upon us, and redheads are upgraded to being sexy. Ooh, see, this is the word. I was like, oh my. My question this week is: have you guys ever imported a game? Imported meaning comes from another country, another version of the game. I ordered Kuro no Kishi a couple weeks ago for my Aaron loving heart. Aaron Way. Okay, that's the Aaron Way game. I get it. I understand. And it's the first time I have imported something. With Callisto Protocol getting canceled in Japan, most of that audience will have to rely on importing to get a copy if they did want to play it since it is now canceled. So I throw the ball over to you guys. Have you guys ever imported something before? Great question. Technically, my PlayStation Vita was an import. I bought it secondhand from someone that it wasn't a Japanese Vita. So yeah. That, actually, my Gravity Rush was my Uncharted was actually a Japanese version of Uncharted, Golden Abyss. So yeah, I have imported a few games, but I don't go out to seek it. It has just stumbled before me. If that makes any sense. Luke, what say you?
No, I've never imported a game ever. I mean, most of the time when you're importing, you're bringing in something Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't typically my interest. JRPGs would have been the only thing we would have needed to import for that, and that's not my interest point. But I think it's really cool when people do.
Yeah,
like I do think it just sounds cool. Yeah, I had this imported. It just sounds dope. It's like that's a power move.
I bought it from PlayAsia. I'm like, oh, you're cool, dude.
All right, dang.
All right. Like that's commitment that I respect. Yeah, I dig it. Great question as always. Everybody, thanks for your questions this week. As this will be the last crazy week for me, Luke. Last crazy week. So I can finally not suffer from burnout. As next week, I will be on the job hunt, which will be interesting.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I'm mimicking you in that one of my responsibilities is ending, and so I will be back to a mostly normal schedule, which I'm excited about. And so we'll get back to XEP and Cast Co-op and everything, which I'm looking forward to.
And with that, Luke, before we go, is there anything you'd like to spotlight?
Well, shout out to Kyle. I think thinking of him. That's really as always. He'd like to plug himself.
Who?
Shout out to Mr. K Step there.
One more who, and I swear to God, I'm gonna coo.
If anybody would like to add on to their follow list, you can find me on Twitter at InsipidGhost and give XCP a shot. I think it's unique in the gaming space, and the way I do it, that doesn't mean it's perfect. I've got some things I want to change once I find some bandwidth for myself and some time.
I like the sales pitch of, hey, you should listen. I got. There's some things I'd like to fix. Well, it's like if I'm selling this car. It's like, hey, it's a good car. Transmission's a little up.
People are here for your genuine elements, Joe. And if they don't know me as one of your best friends by now, I want them to see the genuine element. XCP is a journey, just like all of them. So yeah, I'd love for people to go on that ride with me, and some pretty dope interviews if you go back.
Honest to God, they're really good. They're really good. So that said, the show's perfect, and you should give us 5 stars over on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. You get a win, you get a chance to win God of War Ragnarok Digital Edition, which if you haven't read or seen that review, you might want a copy of God of War Ragnarok, because it seems like it's going to be pretty cool. And please catch us for our Extra Life stream this Saturday. Link in the description to donate. Every $10 goes to first off, goes to kids in need, but it gets you entered to win the limited edition version of God of War Ragnarok, the one with Thor's hammer. But, just to let you guys know, a little legal advice here, it doesn't come back. So once you throw it, you can't swoop it back in your hand. It's a fact. With all that said, you can find me over at Mr. You could have laughed, Luke. You could have had a little giggle.
I was reading a text from Ains who continues to badger us to do our responsibilities.
Oh,
Really
let's put the make the right color this time, guys. How about grow some hair, Ains? How about that? You old. You can find me over at Mr. Badbit. You can find the show over at PS Trophy Room. And again, please, please, please go wish at Mr. K-Step all the best, because he is and his family are truly going through it. And they could really use all your support. In all seriousness, go over there. Tell him how much he means to you. He really needs it. So, love y'all. Keep your wits about you. I feel like I ended on a really like, oh boy, let's get sad. But really, go show him some love. He's going to need it. So with all that said, with all that out of the way, everybody, love y'all. Keep your wits about you. Keep hunting. And keep playing PlayStation. See you guys. This is where you're like, I love you. And I'm like, I love you.
I love you.
There you go. You're getting it.